Hello guys, I am back from another video, and today we're talking about what if Deku was in RWBY. So in the last video we talked about how after Izuku was was basically waking up and basically putting some of these scrolls that were filled with the pastries that he made last time in his bag, basically getting ready to go to the docks to meet with, with the other participating students for the festival. While he was doing that, he would notice, RWBY waking up, as after saying that she was a bit confused seeing him waking up, as Izuku would explain. After doing so, she would tell Izuku that she wants to get some breakfast. And I mean, she really wants breakfast right now. After saying that, Izuku would tell her that he's gonna be making breakfast later, and if she wants to, she can just go to sleep for now. After saying that, she would decide to, go to sleep, as Izuku would basically tell some shadow clones to basically make breakfast for them. And after doing so, Izuku would eat his breakfast as he would wait for the others. Sorry about that. So, as we currently see Izuku, or at least Izuku finishing up his, breakfast and basically still packing up some of the things there, specifically some of these scrolls, and also those, I guess you can say like mobile tables. I don't really know what to call them. As after doing so, he would also see, the rest of the team RWBY basically waking up. After doing so, they would basically start eating breakfast as they would start to leave to go to the docks. After, a while basically walking through the streets of, the streets of like Vale, they would see several people basically, having a lot of fun and also putting up decorations for the festival, which Weiss was pretty excited. But after saying that it was pretty organized, things of that sort, like the whole like boring stuff, well, let's just say one of them specifically, Yang, would start saying that it's kind of boring now after saying that. After, saying that, well, let's just say she was pissed off and would basically tell her to shut up. So, after doing so, we also see, wait for a second, we also see, they would finally arrive, they finally arrived at the docks. After doing so, they would basically set up some of the, the pastries, and after doing so, the other students from the other, kingdoms would basically arrive, and after smelling the baked goods, they would run towards them, and would start to, get all of them, like, instantly. As after getting some information off of them, specifically Weiss, she would get some perfect ideas of basically finding a way to basically get the win for the Vistal Festival. And so, after doing so, we also see the rest of, of the, sort of like canon, more specifically how they saw, a large, dust shop, not really large, but more like, average size, I guess you could say. Like actually, never mind. Actually, it's more like below average. Anyway, continuing on. Apparently, a dust shop was robbed by, well, apparently their main suspect is the White Fang, which caused, Weiss to become a little bit angry and even insult some of the Faunuses, which, caused, Blake to become a little bit mad. Because if you know, you know, especially from last episode. As after a bit of back talking and also insulting each other, Izuku would basically stop it and tell them to basically, just behave themselves. After saying that, they would decide to basically shut up and would start leaving to go back to where the docks are. As we also currently see, let's just say, some other interesting things, like for example, Afana is basically stealing one of the banana breads that he made. And after leaving and basically running away, and, Izuku has to follow them, specifically, with, Weiss and also Blake to basically, get the Faunus, they would basically, lose her. And apparently this Faunus has, blonde hair, shortened, and also seems to have a monkey-like tail. After a bit of arguing with them, specifically, Weiss and, Blake, Izuku would stop it once again as they would start leaving to go back to both the girls, specifically, RWBY and Yang. As after arriving back, we also see another girl with ginger hair, almost like, pretty fluffy as, like, ginger hair, like the almost like, curly one. And it was also shortened, as she would seem to be wearing a all, green dress. Or at least some accents were green, like some of the accents were green. As she would introduce herself as Penny. After meeting them with a pretty, energetic type of way, well, it would cause Izuku to basically think to himself, well, she certainly is a weird girl. As she would basically start shaking his hand, and it would cause him to basically fly around, basically like, that energetic type of character where they basically like, shake like another character's hand, and it basically causes them to basically like, go bouncing, like that type of thing. Yeah, that's basically what Penny is. After doing so, they would basically, decide to basically leave because, it's almost time for, curfew. And after doing so, they would all leave and saying goodbye to their, I guess you can say, sort of friend, which was Penny. After doing so, we currently see them basically all back at the dorms as Izuku's pretty much, packing all of his things, including, his scrolls that used to have the pastries, as he would, unseal some scrolls that were also sealing up some, some of the rest of the cookies. I forgot to say that in the last video because it was sort of a not really important detail, but I guess you can say it sort of is. And so he would decide to put it in. After doing so, he would basically hear some arguing nearby, specifically outside. And after doing so, he would basically walk up to the door and start listening. Apparently, Weiss and Blake were still pretty much arguing on their, well, let's just say their arguments against the, White Fang and Faunus in general. As when the fight escalated too far, well, apparently, well, Blake is a Faunus. Yeah. And so she would start running away, basically angered, knowing that, that after Weiss heard, well, she was pissed off as well, as both of them basically now hate each other. And when they left, Izuku would basically just sigh and would decide to get some sleep. After, Weiss came back from their argument, and, Weiss is pretty much pissed at, pissed knowing that, their Faunus, or at least Faunus, basically is in their team, specifically her team, which technically it's more like Ruby's team, but either way, after basically, going back to the bedroom, she would decide to sleep in, in Izuku's futon, as after doing so, both of them would basically fall asleep. Unbeknownst to Izuku that tomorrow, or at least in the morning, is definitely going to be chaotic. So yeah, that is basically what happened last episode. And so, let us talk about what happens next, boys and girls. So, after basically waking up, Izuku would say this. Well, that felt comfortable, he would say, as he would try to stand up, but before he can, he would start feeling an arm basically resting upon his, well, near his, let's just say glory. As in, somewhere that is currently having a fun time. Oh boy. As after feeling the hand, he would start looking towards, his side, as he would notice a sleeping Weiss. After noticing her, he would start, moving out of the way, basically like, putting her legs gently out of his, area. As he would also put her hand off of his area, and would basically start, standing up, and would start leaving to make breakfast, because there's no way that he's going to deal with that. But he would also notice that Blake isn't in her bed. As after noticing this, he would start thinking to himself, I just hope Blake comes back, he would say to himself. After saying that, we currently see Izuku with the rest of Team RWBY. As after all of them would wake up, one of them would say this, specifically RWBY. Hey guys, where's Blake? Said one of them, as Izuku would say this. Yeah, I don't really know either, he would say, with, a sort of like, worried voice, sort of. As Yang would say this. Yeah, I didn't really see, Blake this morning, even when we woke up. As all of them would start looking towards, Weiss, as Weiss would say this. What? She would say. As Izuku would say this. Did you go into an argument with Blake again? He would say, as she would say this. It's none of your business. Besides, she's one of them, she would say. As, one of them would say this, specifically, well, Ruby, one of them? What do you mean by that, Weiss? As she would say this. It's nothing, she would say. And besides, we need to get ready. After all, we have to go back to class soon. As after saying that, all of them would basically start to leave. But for Izuku, he would start thinking to himself, guess I'll just have to help her out, he would say. As after saying that, he would start leaving, basically changing into his, uniform, as he would start to leave. So, after arriving, back at class, everybody is basically there. Except for Team Cardin. Or at least used to be Team Cardin. Because after the incident, well, let's just say they're currently still pretty much, being avoided. And so, the rest of, Team Cardin, or at least the ones that are not, Cardin themselves, or Cardinal, or whatever, you basically get it. Team Cardinal is basically now just, in their, room, basically never coming out at all. As they're currently, well, their reputation at this point is basically much lower than anything. Maybe about the same level as, the center of the earth. Yeah. And so, as we currently see Izuku in class, as you would also notice that team, Blake is not there as well. As you would say this. Guess I'll try and find her, he would say to himself. As after saying that, he would look towards, their class, which was mostly combat class. As after a while basically talking about, specifically, Linda Goodwitch basically talking about some ways to basically, maximize their, aura and things of that sort, all of them would basically start to leave. As one of his friends, or at least sort of friends, wait for a second, god dang it, one of their friends specifically, well, Pyra would say this. Hey, Izuku, Team RWBY. As after saying that, Ruby would say this. Yeah, Pyra? She would say. She would say this. Well, where is Blake? She would say. As Izuku would say this. Oh, yeah. We didn't really see her this morning. I'm starting to become a little bit worried. I'm starting to become a little bit worried, towards her, he would say. After saying that, all of the girls nearby, after hearing that, all of them would just start to, become a little bit mad, to say the least. Because remember, almost every girl at this point is starting to like Izuku in all of Beacon, except for, then the Good Witch, because I consider her as basically like a mom. I even, started thinking that because I recently started, reading a book about, a, character that's basically the son of Glinda Goodwitch. And if you don't know, I've started becoming a bit of a fan of Wattpad. Yeah, and I especially started making books about their, oh boy, and I'm probably still gonna do that. And it's also, one of the books I'm probably gonna make into a what if. Yeah. But I'm not really sure that I should make him, Izuku, or Belle, maybe, have the, actually, most of the what ifs that are about, somebody basically going into another world, like, for example, into Kill la Kill, well, it's mostly Izuku, because I consider him as my main one. So, yeah, probably Izuku. But still, I'm still pretty much thinking about it. Either he's going to have the powers of the Espada, or the powers of... or all of the powers of, monsters from Monster Hunter, maybe. Just a maybe. So, yeah. So, as we currently see Izuku just there, as he would say this. We don't know. We seriously don't know. As, Pyro would say this. Then, if she is, gone, maybe you should try and find her. As he would say this. That sounds like a great idea, but we don't really know where she is at all. I mean, we could definitely go looking around Vale, but what if she's gone somewhere else? Like, somewhere far from, Vale itself. After saying that, Pyro would say this. You have a good point, she would say. As one of them would say this, specifically Jean. Hey, Pyro, we should probably get leaving. I mean, you said that you're going to help me with training, she would say. As she would say this. Oh, yeah, Jean, don't worry. As Jean would look towards Izuku, as she would start blushing a little bit, as she would say this, hello, Izuku, she would say, with, sorry about that, what the fuck just happened over there? Sorry about that. Anyway, just ignore the background noise because, yeah. God. As after, saying that, Jean would say this, yeah, Izuku, as Izuku would say this, yeah, Jean? And she would say this, anyway, I should probably start leaving, she would say, as she would basically grab onto Pyra's hand, as she would start running away with Pyra, as she would say this, bye Izuku, she would say, as Izuku would say this, oh, bye Pyra, he would say, as Pyra and, well, Jean would just be gone. And as for the rest of team, Team Juniper, both, Ren and also, Nora basically left already. And after doing so, he would say this. So, guys, as after looking at them, one of them would say this. Yeah, Izuku, she would say, specifically Yang, as he would say this. We need to find, not Pyra, I meant, we need to find Blake, as one of them would say this. Maybe we could, as after saying that, after saying it, Izuku would say this. Find her where exactly, as she would say this. Actually, maybe we can split up, as Izuku would say this. That could work, he would say. As she would say this. Yeah, then let's split up into teams. How about you? As she would start looking towards, Weiss, as she would say this. I'm only doing this because it's Izuku, who requested it, she would say. As Izuku would say this. Thank you, Weiss, she would say. He would say. As would cause, Weiss to basically blush a little bit, as she would say this. Yeah, it's not a problem, she would say. After saying that, all of them would basically start to leave. So, after class, they would start leaving to find, to try and find, Blake. So, Izuku is basically going around town, basically with, with the help of RWBY, because RWBY was picked to basically go with him. To the dismay of the other girls. And as for the rest of, the teams, apparently, some of Team Juniper would decide to join them. Specifically, Jean and also, or Joan, in this case. And, Pyra. And both of them would basically start, going their separate ways. Like, Jean is with, Weiss. For some odd reason. I mean, it could fit. I mean, knights and, she's sort of a knight, but still. And as for, Pyra and also, Yang, they would also go their separate ways. Currently with Izuku and, RWBY, as Izuku is basically flying around with the help of, his, animal path, basically creating, a few, not really monsters, I meant, a few summoned beasts. As for, RWBY, she would also help out with the help of her, with the help of her powers. More specifically, her super speed. As she would start going around, areas and basically asking for, for some help. Mostly from people. Like, for example, some people like, some random butchers, some random, coffee shop owners. Because that's apparently, I guess you'd say, a way to basically find Blake. After saying the description of her, she would basically, get some information. Apparently Blake has been talking to the same Faunus that they met, last time, aka the Monkey Faunus. As after, following the clues, they would basically arrive at, a dead end. After, talking to a few more people, apparently one of them doesn't really know what happened to Blake. Apparently they just left. And they don't really know what they're actually doing. So they're currently now at a park. Basically by themselves. Specifically Izuku and, RWBY. As she would say this. Where is that? She would say. As Izuku would say this. You okay, RWBY? As she would say this. Not really. I mean, we couldn't find our friend. And it's starting to, make me pretty angry, she would say. As Izuku could say this. You're telling me. He would just sigh. As after saying that, he would say this. So, hey, RWBY. She would say this. Yeah, Izuku, she would say. As Izuku would say this. Well, um, if we can, maybe we can, um, he would start thinking. As he would say this. Um, if we can, maybe we could, hang out some other time. Maybe like, when we finally find Blake. As she would say this. Um, uh, she would start blushing a little bit as she would say this. Yeah, sure, she would say, as her face would start becoming a little bit red. As he would say this. Huh, I guess that sounds cool, he would say. As she would start saying, yeah. She would start laughing a little bit as she would start blushing even more, because of Izuku's nice little smile. So, after a while basically sitting on the bench, Izuku would say this. So, maybe one last try, he would say. And she would say this. Yeah, well, then maybe we could finally find Blake. Maybe, she would say. As after saying that, he would say this. Yeah, I just hope we can finally find Blake, he would say. As after saying that, a person would basically walk up to him, as she would say this. This person was... As the person would say this. Salutations. As after saying that, they would look towards the voice as they would notice it was, well, her, aka Miss Penny. Oh boy, as she would say this. Salutations, it's nice to meet you again, she would say, as Izuku would say this. Oh, hello there, Penny, he would say, as she would say this. Yeah, salutation, Mr. Izuku, she would say. Now, may I ask, why are you here? She would say, as Izuku would say this. Well, we're trying to look for our friend. We couldn't really find her. As after saying that, one of them would say this. Specifically, well, her, aka, Penny. Maybe I could help you, she would say. As Izuku would say this. Wait, really? That would actually be, as she would say this. Now, tell me, who is this your friend? And please tell me some information about her. Especially her appearance, she would say. As Izuku would say this. She has black hair, a black bow, and seems to be wielding a katana. Or at least a katana holster and gun combo. As she would say this. I see, she would say. As she would start looking for some ideas, more specifically some databases. As she would start, well, not really databases, but, I guess, sort of, she would start grabbing her, scroll and would start going through, something, like an app. Or at least you think so, as after a while she would say this. She seems to be nearby, more specifically over here, she would say, as she would point at the little area that seems to be a docking area, or, well, a warehouse, as Izuku would say this. That seems, I guess, he would start to think in his mind, as she would say this. Now, let's get going. Now, as all of them would basically start to leave, including, Izuku, RWBY, and also Penny. As they would, start to leave, we go to a different perspective. We currently see Blake with the Faunus, aka, which apparently her name was Sun Wukong. Which, I mean, it doesn't really fit. I mean, Sun Wukong is basically named after a monkey king, but if you guys want to, maybe you can, think of any names to basically, well, replace it. She would say this. So, hey, son, she would say this. Yeah, Blake, she would say, as, Blake would say this. So, if the White Fang were to actually be the ones that are stealing, she would say this. Yeah, it will be pretty much be trouble for us. Especially me, she would say this. As after saying that, Blake would say this. Yeah, she would just sigh. But we'll prove to them that us Faunuses are not really that bad. As after saying that, she would start thinking in her mind, especially you, Izuku, she would say. As one of them would say this, specifically, Sun Wukong. Or just Sun. Are you perhaps in love with that guy, she would say? As he would say this, she. Yeah. He, well, helped me, sort of. And he seems to be like he seems to like Vonuses a lot, but he seems to also sort of hate them, more specifically the White Fang, she would say, as she would say this. I guess that's sort of understandable, she would say, as one of them would say this. Yeah, I guess so. As she would look towards the girl, as she would say this. Anyway, son, as she would say this. Yeah, Blake, she would say, as she would say this. Well then, if you were to, well, try and find a way to basically, hurt my Izuku, she would say, as she would say this. What? As she would basically grab onto her shambles shroud and would basically put it up to her neck, as she would say this. I will not hesitate but to kill you, she would say. So don't even try to get into my Izuku's pants, she would say. As after saying that, she would say this. Whoa. Trust me, I won't. I mean, how cute is he? Like, how cute is he, she would say. As she would say this. Oh, don't you even think of that, she would say. As she would say this. Sorry, I didn't mean that, she would say. As she would say this. Now, we should probably still be, as after saying that, they would look towards, the sound of a bullhead. As after hearing that, they would see a lot, and I mean a lot of wait for a second. Sorry about that. As after looking at the bullhead, it would start to open, revealing members of the White Fang, basically grabbing onto crates and basically bringing them towards the dock. As after doing so, one of them would say this, specifically Blake. So, it is true, she would say. I can't believe it. There, as before she could say anything else, you would hear a familiar voice, or at least familiar to sort of her. As this voice would say this. No, you idiots! They're supposed to go over there, you idiots! He would say, as they would look over and would see Roman Torchwick. As one of them would say this, specifically one of the White Fang members. Sorry, boss, he would say, as he would start grabbing onto the crate, as he would start moving it towards a different area, as he would say this. Whatever. As Blake would say this. What? How? And why are they working for him? I mean, he pretty much hates Vonuses, she would say. I need to get over there, she would say. As, Sun would say this. Hey, girl, he would say. As she would say this. Yeah? As she would say this. I'll act as cover. And in case if he were to basically command him, then, as she would say this, don't worry. I got this, she would say. And would basically drop down from the, from the rooftop as she would start, well, basically like hiding from some of the White Fang members as she would walk towards, Roman Torchwick and would basically use her, her weapon, aka Gamble Shroud, to basically, pin him to, to the spot, as she would say this. Now, time for you to pay, you bastard, as she would say this towards all of the White Fang members. Brothers and sisters, she would say, as causing all of the White Fang members to look over, as she would basically grab onto her, bow, and would basically pull it off, showing off cat ears, as she would say this. White Fang members, my brothers and sisters, why are you working with this scum, she would say, as all the White Fang members would just be, confused and also quite conflicted, as, the man would say this, aka Roman Torchwick. Oh, little kitty, he would say. Besides, we're in some sort of I guess you can say a, business venture. They basically work for me now. As after saying that, she would say this. What? How? How do you... As she would say this. He would say this. Now, I want you to take care of her. As after saying that, the bullhead would basically, start flying off. As a gun or a gun turret would basically be activated. Start shooting at towards, Blake. After doing so, Blake would basically dodge out of her way, as a few White Fang members would basically charge towards her. After doing so, she would start fighting them with her Gamble Shroud, as she would start using the gun mode to basically fire at them, while using, actually I sort of forgotten what her other weapons do, but, her katana side would basically activate and would basically start clashing with the other, the other White Fang members that basically, were not getting attacked by, her gun. As Roman Torchwick would say this. I guess I should probably do this instead, he would say. as he would basically throw a fire dust crystal towards, Blake, as he would fire off his cane gun. After doing so, the bullet would travel towards the, the fire dust crystal and would explode, causing, her to basically jump back a little bit. As she would say this. She would say it with a little bit of, anger in her voice. As, after doing so, he would say this. Now take this, he would say, as he would get ready another, blast. But before he can, a large beast would basically, appear out of nowhere, as it would cause Roman Torchic to be surprised, as it would be a large-ass panda. Yeah, no kidding, it's a fucking panda, with, several piercings upon his body, as it would have the glowing, purple eyes with the, 9 Tomo in its rings. And this beast is another summoned beast from Izuku, as Izuku would jump down from the panda as he would say this. Alright guys, as you look towards Blake and seeing her cat ears, as he would say this to himself. Damn, they're fluffy, he would start thinking to himself. I wonder how they feel, he would say, as he would shake his head as he would say this. No, keep yourself in the game, he would say. As after saying that, he would start looking towards Roman Torchwick as he would say this. Great, you, he would say, as he would say this. Damn greenie, he would say, as he would start getting ready his cane gun, as Izuku would say this. Now, guess I should take care of the rest of you, as some of the White Fang members would basically get up and would start charging towards Izuku. As for, Ruby and Penny would start activating her weapon, which seemed to be, several, swords. I guess you can say swords. As they would start, twirling around and would start shooting off a beam. As she would basically grab two of the swords, or guns, sort of, as she would start using them like, swords, and would start firing off blasts, or at least little blasts. As for, Ruby herself, Ruby would start fighting with her, with her Crescent Rose, and would start slashing them, and would start activating the, the sniper rifle mode, and would start firing at, some of the nearby, the nearby, members of the White Fang. And as for Izuku, he would see the rest of the members basically charging towards him, as he would say this. Now, almighty push, he would say, as would cause everybody to be blown away, causing several of the, White Fang members to basically be blown away, and would basically crash into some debris, causing them to be knocked out, or, kick the bucket, let's just say that. I mean, hopefully some of them basically, survive. Most of them survive, but the rest, dead. Mostly 4. Sorry about that. Anyway, continuing on with the episode. And I'm really sorry because I was also kind of busy talking to my classmates because of a stupid-ass project, which, by the way, it's also my final exams, which, by the way, is gonna be fucking hard. Not only that, I also have to deal with the freaking And here we go again! Sorry about that. Anyway, continuing on, as we currently see Izuku basically, did that, aka basically, causing some of them to almost die, as, Roman Torchwick would say this. What the? As he would start looking at the kid, as he would say this. What in the? You're an absolute monster, he would say, as he would say this. Well, I guess you could say that, but it's more like I'm stronger, he would say. As he would basically, sorry about that, here we go, sorry about that. As he would basically grab onto, not really grab, but more like, face his hand, face his hand a little bit, to the side, as something would start appearing in his hand. A large-ass axe made out of red energy, as he would say this. Now, time to take care of you, he would say, as he would start charging towards him with the axe, as it would cause Roman Torchwick to basically run out of the way, as he would say this. Crap, he would say, as he would say this. I'm not really into fights, he would say, as you start thinking in mind, starts thinking in his mind, and he's supposed to be my, wait for a second, and he's supposed to be my son-in-law, he would say to himself, too, because remember, Neapolitan, aka Neo, is sort of in love with him, and even thinks of maybe even marrying him, so he would start thinking in his mind about that, because, he's supposed to be his, his son-in-law. Oh God. As you start thinking in his mind, as he would start looking towards the bullhead, he would say this. Hey, hey, he would say, as it would cause the bullhead to basically face towards him, as he would say this. Get me out of here, he would say. As the bullhead would basically land towards, the ground, as he would grab onto the bullhead, as he would say this. Sorry, Mr. Greeny, but I won't be getting killed or anything of that sort. Or even get captured, he would say. As he would start laughing a little bit, as he would say this. You really think that you can escape? As after saying that, he would say this. Huh? As he would say this. Now. As he would say, universal pull. After saying that, it would cause well, I guess you'd say the bullhead to basically start becoming, a little bit, starts becoming a little bit closer to it. As he would say this. There's no way for you to escape. Izuku would say, as you would say this, as you would start calling upon, some of the, staff in the, bullhead, as you would say this, hey, use the goddamn turret, he would say, as after saying that, one of the guardsmen, or not really guardsmen, but more like, wait for a sec, as one of them would say this, yes sir, he would say, specifically one of the Wi-Fi members. After, getting onto the turret, he would start firing at, Izuku. After doing so, Izuku would just do this. He would basically take off his mask after seeing, the bullets basically raining upon him as a large patch of smoke would basically appear out where Izuku was shot, as everybody would just be surprised, as Ruby would say this, Izuku, she would say, with tears in her eyes, as it would cause Blade to become a little bit mad, as she would say this. Did they, as before they can say anything else, well, a large, gigantic-ass, glowing, white hand would basically appear, basically, almost resembling a large skeletal hand. And yes, you probably know what it is. And so, after the smoke clears, Izuku seems to be enveloped with some sort of skeletal-like figure. It seems to be, similar to, well, just imagine, yeah, that's a freaking Susano. It's a freaking Susano. So, just imagine, one arm is basically, like, larger than the other. Yeah, I based it a little bit off, like, a Son of the Cursed Arm. But not only that, the other arm seems to have another, just imagine it just like, Madara's, like, Madara's like Susano, where it basically has, like, two joints in its arm. Yeah, like, another arm on its arm. I don't really know what to call it, basically. As one of the hands, specifically the one with the, somewhat, larger, as in longer hand, would have a large axe, while the, the two other, arms on his, I guess you could say, like, I don't really want to call it, you basically get it. One of the hands would basically be holding a large-looking arrow, and the other one seems to be wielding a bow. As he would say this. How do you like this, he would say. As after saying that, everybody would just be surprised, including Son. As Son would say this. What in the... As he would say this. Meet my Susano, he would say. As after saying that, the, face of the Susano would basically be revealed. It would seem to resemble, a face that seems to be twisted. More specifically, like one of the eyes seems to be open, while the other one seems to be almost deformed, like basically like a swirl, similar to Obito's, or more specifically, Toby's old mask, back when he was basically working for the Akatsuki, like the orange one. As he would say this, now, face this, he would say, as it would start getting ready, get ready. Basically, the other hand would start activating the arrow, or, the bow, as it would reel up the, arrow, basically getting ready to aim at the bullhead. As one of them would say this, get us out of here, he would say, as the, bullhead, driver would basically start, getting away immediately, basically flying off, as he would say this. There's no way for you to escape, he would say. Now face this. Hachiman Zero, he would say, as the arrow would start being enveloped in black electricity, with a mix of, like, of unmorose fire. As the arrow would be fired, as it would rush towards, the bullhead. as the bullhead would be shot right next to it, as it would cause a large explosion right beside it. As Roman Torchwick would say this. Holy shit, he would say to himself, as he would say this, run, run, as after saying that, the bullhead driver would start, running away as fast as he can. As after doing so, we also see a few, policemen after noticing the large explosion from up in the sky, as one of them would say this. Holy shit, one of them would say, as one of them would say this. Let's go, he would say, as you would start running towards, or not really running towards, but more like driving in their, police cars towards, the large explosion. After hearing that. So, after doing so, Izuku would basically deactivate his Susano with the help of his Sharingan. As after doing so, he would look towards the rest of the people there. Specifically, RWBY, RWBY and the rest of the girls. As he would say this. Hey, so, sorry about that, one of them would say, Izuku would say, as one of them would say this, specifically RWBY. That was awesome, she would say. What the heck was that, she would say, as Izuku would say this. Oh, that was my Susano. It's basically my ultimate technique, he would say. It's basically the ultimate offense and defense. As she would say this. That was awesome. Can you show me? As Izuku would say this. Well, I can't show you that because, as one of them would say this. That was quite amazing, she would say. Specifically, Penny, as he would say this. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of amazing, but it sort of drains me a little bit. After saying that, one of them would say this, specifically Blake. Hey, Izuku, she would say. As Izuku would say this. Yeah? As Izuku would notice her, her cat-like ears, as she would say this. Do you think that I'm a freak? She would say, as Izuku would look at her with a sympathetic look, as he would say this. No, you're not a freak. Besides, you're my friend, he would say. As after hearing that, she would say this. Thank you, she would say, as she would somewhat have a nice smile on her face. As she would say this, then, Izuku, can we, as before they can, basically leave, we also see, Sudden basically getting out of there, as she would say this. Bye, Blake, she would say, as Izuku would say this. Wait, as she would say this. Oh, bye, Mr. Izuku, I guess, she would say, as she would start to leave, never returning. So, after doing so, Izuku would say this. God dang it, I should have gotten her name, he would say. As she would say this. Oh, and sorry for not informing you that I basically left, she would say. As Izuku would say this. Well, it's not really your fault. I mean, it was sort of like Weiss's fault for basically causing you to do this. As she would say this. Huh, I guess you're right, she would say. As after saying that, we see the policeman basically arriving, as, we also see, Glinda Goodwitch. So, time skip. We currently see everybody just like there, specifically the ones that basically got into the fight with Torchwick, as currently we see an angry Goodwitch basically, shouting at them, basically saying, how they were reckless and basically missed curfew, and all of them are basically like, sitting down on the ground, but more like kneeling, as they would basically say sorry multiple times, as she would basically sigh and would basically tell, them to basically get back home immediately, and would also tell, Weiss and, Yang, and also, the rest of the girls, specifically, Pyra, and also, Jean, to basically get back home immediately. So, after arriving back home, they would basically go their separate ways, specifically, Jean and also Pyra. After leaving, we currently see an interaction with, both Weiss and, Blake. And this interaction was basically this. They basically just reconciled and would basically, see them basically becoming friends again. Sort of. I mean, they're still pretty much the rivals towards Izuku's love. And so, because of this, we're going to be leaving off the episode right off here, where Izuku's now basically going back to bed on his futon, while the other girls basically finally waking up. As for, Weiss, she would have a somewhat, normal relationship with, with her, aka, Miss Belladonna, or Bella Booty, as most of you call her in the internet. As, all of them would basically fall asleep. But not before, when everybody's basically falling asleep, we currently see, well, Weiss, not really Weiss, I meant Blake basically coming up to Izuku. As she would basically go onto his futon and would basically kiss him on the forehead, as she would say this. "Thank you for accepting me," she would say. As her eyes would slowly become hard eyes, as she would say this. "I promise, I won't let anybody hurt you," she would say. As after saying that, we basically left the episode right off here, where, Blake is finally falling asleep. So yeah, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!